Hey, welcome back to the video. Today we are at Main Line Crit in close to Pennsylvania. This footage was sent in by John. Thanks for that, John. In this time it's really important to have some footage for me, so thank you for that. You can send in your own race footage to breakawaychannel@gmail.com. So John told me to look out for the white Veloz guy. The guy with the white dot above him. He was the best all-round rider in points. So he told me to look out, that he had to look out for him. So here we are in lap 2. This was quite a local lap for John. He told me it was his last race of the season. And yeah, he's already, so remember, this is lap 2 and he's already closing down some gaps, early race, probably doing a little bit too much in the beginning, but maybe it isn't too bad. So yeah, there are 2 guys ahead of him, a couple of meters. He can choose his own lines through the turns, so that's quite okay. So he gets back to the rider in front, and still one rider is trying to break away. So he stays in the wheel of the rider in front of him, and there goes another attack. So yes, he's dropping off a little bit to the back. So, but he has to try to stay at least close to the front, so he can react on all those attacks. But this isn't the worst. So as you can see, it's an amazing atmosphere here in at the Main Line Crit. A lot of people had come to John's home race. Here you can listen. So yeah, quite a fun race. So here we jump forward a little bit, and you can see John drop a little bit in the corner, and now he's having to do 600-700 watts to get back on the wheel, which isn't very ideal. So yeah, we rewind this a little bit to see exactly what happened, and so you can see at this point John is at the wheel, and you can see already the gap is opening up. If you see his cadence is dropping to 70, it's 1-2 meters, but now he has to do 600 watts to close the gap, and doing this once or twice isn't the worst, but when you have to do this 6 or 7 times, it's becoming a little bit of a problem. So luckily for John, the peloton stops, and he gets back fairly easily. But yeah, I saw the footage, and I saw this was a little bit of a problem. A couple of turns he just wasn't on it in the corners, but he told me this, and yeah, this isn't to make fun of him, but it's just a reminder to stay close to the wheels in front, otherwise you could drop off a little bit. Because the energy he spent closing down this gap, he also could have spent going to the front at this point of the race. So yeah, it's always better to spend the energy to get back to the front or close down a gap at front, and not closing down a gap at the back of the peloton. So we jump forward a bit. Here John starts following an attack. He's very keen to react, and I think it was a very good attack. I mean, 2 riders at the front are going. He tries to follow. He's not too far away. So at his home race, he wants to show himself, I think. So yeah, a really good attack. When they can get away with 3 people, they can choose their own pace, and the peloton behind always has to get back. So it's better to be at front than having to chase. and the speed was very high, but he just isn't really close to the riders in front and isn't getting too much of a draft. Look, 53 k's per hour, which is quite fast, especially in the beginning of the race. But the gap stays at 20 meters, so he has to do all the work on his own. So that isn't ideal, and he isn't getting any closer in the turns. So yeah, it isn't the best thing at the moment, but you can see he's getting closer, and he's trying to close down the gap, which is really brave of him, but isn't always the smartest thing to do. And here he gets swamped by a couple of riders who try to close down the gap. So it turned out he brought the whole pack with him, with his attack, and that isn't ideal. I think he did a way too long turn at the front to bring the whole peloton with you. I mean, if you bridge it solo or the rider behind has to do the same amount of work, it's okay, but I think this time he did a little bit too much. But it's okay, they're getting close to the riders in front and maybe they can get back to them. So you could hear someone scream left side, and there goes another attack. It's quite a lot of attacks this race, which is quite in John's favor. He told me he likes to attack a lot and doesn't always want to wait for the sprint, so maybe this is good for John. We'll see. So again, you can see him drop a little bit off in the corners, which all those little peaks he's making with his power data are costing him a lot of energy, and as said earlier, he could have used this energy to get back at the front or trying to attack, but instead he's now having to use it following the rider in front, which isn't ideal. But he gets back to the wheel, and that's the most important part. And it's there's a little attack, but nothing too much, nothing too special. In this case, he just has to try to stay at the front and don't get too much behind, because otherwise he has to close down all those little gaps. So we jump a little further in the race. Actually, this is in the last 6k, so there's no breakaway at the front. It's quite hectic. As you can see, a lot of people wanting to move up. The lap is only 1.2k, which is 0.75 miles. So for my American followers, if you want to see the speed in miles per hour, you can click on the infographic and let me know. So it's a really high pace set at the moment, and you can see people are dropping behind. And I think John was in a really good position. He's with the top 5 riders in the last couple of laps, only 6k to go. And again, you can see him drop in the corners, and he's going 55 k's per hour. So in this corner you could see, look, after the corner he has to do 600-700 watts to get back on the wheel, and almost doing 750 watts. So it's really important to stay close to the wheels in front. Then you don't have to do these kind of peaks, and you're just saving a lot of energy, and that's the most important thing in racing: saving energy for the end of the race. And if you can save a little energy by staying closer to the person in front, you can see he has to do 400-350 watts to try and get back, and he was in 5th position. So it's really it was really important to stay in the wheels, and he unfortunately didn't manage to stay close enough, and now he has to chase and waste energy. And now you can see his powers dropping off a little bit, so he has to make sure he gets back on the wheel fast, or let other riders do something, because otherwise he won't see them back. And here you can already see some riders jumping him from behind, and he just can't follow, so he has to try to find a wheel, get back in the rhythm, and try to get back to the front. So for him it's just trying to find a wheel to get as quickly as possible to get back to the front. And I think in this corner he could find a wheel to get back. And yeah, it's just trying to stay with the peloton so he can get back to the front, because the race isn't very long anymore. So yeah, again a turn, a little gap, and he has to do all those watts to get back to the wheel. Again 700 watts, and every corner it's a lot, and it's not to make fun of John, or a lot of pros are making this mistake, and it's just sometimes scary to go in the turns, and if you're not very confident, the gaps can become bigger and bigger and bigger. And here you can see John just got back to the rider in front, and now he already has to go to the peloton, which wasn't quite a big gap, so he has to give it his everything to get back to the group, otherwise he will be dropped at his local race in the last few laps. So yeah, you can see the gap isn't very big, but I think at this point of the race he was very tired of all the work he has done till now. So you can see the gap isn't big, but still the last couple of meters closing this gap was I think very painfully, and he finally managed to close the gap and immediately starts to move up a little bit, which is good. Always try to move up when you can. If you're coming from behind, most of the time you have overspeed, and if you use that overspeed to get a little bit to the front, then it's always better than waste the energy and tap the brakes and lose all this energy you put in. So make use of the energy you put into the race. You can see the speed rising again. Certainly in this area of the course, there's almost no way to overtake a rider, and I think his lines are okay in this section. He's doing quite well. He's staying on the wheel. He's not. You can see now he's only doing 500 watts instead of 700 watts, and that's making a big difference. As we almost see the rider in front crash, let's rewatch it. So we paused the footage for a second, and we can see the rider slide a little bit. At high speed it looked scarier than at low speed. But John stays quite close to the wheel in front, so he didn't leave too big of a gap. So now it's just a case to trying to get it at the front in those last couple of laps. So it's one lap to go after this turn. Then we get back to the final straight. So one lap to go. He's not too far at the back, but he isn't close to the front. So he has to make sure he moves up a little bit if he wants to have a chance to win this race. But I think he's quite tired of the energy he put into this race. So, but maybe you never know. It's his local race, last race of the season. So he must be motivated to get back at the front. But you can see open up little gaps here, and you can see he's very tired. His heart rate is quite high. His RPM isn't as high as in the beginning. He stops pedaling very early in these corners. But yeah, he tries to get back to the wheel in front, but it's quite hard at this point. So yeah, he has to give everything to win, and again he has to do 750 watts out of this corner. But he's getting a little bit closer, so you never know, maybe he can get back on the wheel and try to survive. So yeah, only half a lap to go. Last couple of corners. After this one corner to go, and then there's the finish. So yeah, he's trying to close back the gap. He's doing 300 watts with another couple of riders, but winning the race is over. This is too close to the finish. Last turn here, and you can see there was a crash. So here in the slow-mo, a crash. Maybe it was better John was dropped, otherwise he could have been involved in this crash. The rider in the crash had to go to the hospital, but luckily he was okay. So John finished 23rd, just behind the peloton. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks John for sending in the footage. It really helps out. If you got some footage, you can send it in to breakawaychannel@gmail.com. And see you in the next one, and let's ride.